Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. Well, it's a new year and we're on to a new part of the Columbia Lore video series. Up until this point, we've been concerned with very recent events in the history of Columbia. While the Lakeshire War led to the creation of the modern Columbian state, and many people who live in the Columbian West had their lives shaped by the events of that war, as a nation, Columbia's roots go all the way back to the island of Avalon. The Knights of the Stone Circle that formed the backbone of Lakeshire's military during the war is just one example of this. Another is the nation's veneration of the mated pair. This veneration and the creation of Avalon as a nation go hand in hand. In fact, the mated pair are credited with giving Arthur Phoenixborn, Avalon's first and only king, the power and wisdom to found his country. Now, as the name implies, Avalon does not venerate a single guardian deity, but rather two of them. The first, the Lord in Raging Skies, as his name implies, is a ruler of air and water. His weapon is a thunderbolt, and he carries winter as his shield. He is equated with notions such as justice, self-control, memory, change, innovation, and truth. While his power is significant, it requires great discipline in its use, for it is easily capable of stretching far beyond its intended purposes and wreaking great havoc on the world at large. His clergy are the Storm's Watch. These men typically take up posts outside towns, villages, or even large cities, in towers where they watch the weather, bring back reports of potential dangers on the horizon, and, in the Columbian West, handle a number of tricky businesses revolving around contracts and bounties in the absence of more formal legal systems. While the clergy of the mated pair don't have any innate magical abilities, the Storm's Watch has a great deal of moral authority that makes them a generally trusted source to handle things such as contract disputes or swearing out warrants. The Lady in Burning Stone is the other half of the pair. She is attached to the elements of fire and earth, and typically associated with concepts such as the hearth, nurturing, growth, birth, death, and protection. Her clergy are the Hearth Keepers, an order of women who often live at the heart of towns or in large cities at the heart of neighborhoods in stone buildings known as hearth fires, where they do indeed maintain a fire burning at all times. The Hearth Keepers tend to oversee things like feeding the hungry, maintaining orphanages, taking care of healing responsibilities, particularly those related to childbirth, and hosting funerals for the recently departed. Servants of the mated pair are not sworn to celibacy, which would be, if you think about it, rather silly. On the contrary, marriage is something of an expectation. However, the vows require that your marriage take place with a member of the other sect of clergy. So the Storm's Watch and the Hearth Keepers are expected to be joined together, much as those they serve are. As you might expect, this is a requirement that has led many members of the orders to leave them. While hearth fires and watch posts are staffed by 10 to 15 people, the members of whom are rotated every year or so, it can still be something of a trial for the members of these clergies to find a suitable partner before they turn 25, which is the point at which they must leave the order if they remain unmarried. And if you're wondering, most people join the orders at the age of 15, which is the beginning of adulthood in Columbian and Avaloni society. There is more than just a symbolic weight to this requirement as well. Traditional elementally based magic theory states that a thing is only truly alive and capable of free will and self-determination if it has a balance of all four elements present in it. This is why the mated pair is often referred to as a singular unit. Separately, the Lord and Lady are just elementals. Creatures of incredible power, yes, but driven towards predetermined ends. An elemental, after all, is a creature that seeks to express a single elemental idea in the world around it. It is only through the balancing and weighing of the various elemental forces within a living thing that creates the possibility of decision and individuality in a living thing. It is the mated pair that creates that balance between the Lord and Lady, a balance that must be duplicated in their followers. Now, all of these things may be well and good, but you ask yourself, why is this the national religion of Avalon, and by extension, of Columbia? Why did the mated pair choose to bestow their blessings and wisdom upon Arthur Phoenixborn? Well, believe it or not, it has a great deal to do with the original marriage of the mated pair. At least if you believe the story as Arthur told it. You see, in the olden days of the high past, when the lady set out to meet her lord and join him in matrimony, she departed from the citadel of her father, the sun, in the far east, and she traveled from there to the north and to the west, where she expected to meet her liege at the top of the world. She brought with her the many treasures of her dowry, bursting with the power of the hearth flame, and she set out across the seas, the plains, and the mountains in order to reach her beloved. However, as she passed through the mountains, she encountered a trio of giants, known as the Brothers Walking. When they asked her where she was going, she told them, and, realizing that she must be bearing with her gifts from her father, the sun, the brothers conspired together to seize these treasures for themselves, and so they deceived her, offering her the opportunity to rest in the shelter of their mountain home. Believing that the power of hospitality was absolute, the lady agreed. But when she fell asleep, they emptied out her bag of treasures, then threw it over her and tied it shut so she could not escape. While the power of the hearth flame burned bright within her, a sack intended to contain the treasures of the sun will not be seared or singed by such a flame. And so the brothers Walking set about dividing their spoils between them, bickering long into the night and into the next morning over who should take what. Now, when his bride did not appear at the appointed time the next day, the Lord in raging skies flew up into the heavens and asked the sun where his daughter had gone. But since she had been waylaid in the evening, for his face had not been turned to that part of the earth when it happened. And so the Lord flew across the earth, searching for her, and spreading his wings out so that storms and rain doused every fire on earth, till no flame but his bride's could burn. Or so he thought. As it turned out, the treasures of the lady's dowry also burned. And this was how he found the brothers Walking. When he saw them still bickering over who would take which treasures, he fell upon them in the fullness of his wrath. Terrified, they fled before his presence, each running in a different direction, each grabbing a handful of the spoil and taking it with them. Kilimanjaro Walking was the strongest of the brothers, and the Lord pursued him far to the south. When at last the giant was caught, he fought fiercely, but the Lord fought back with greater strength, and he smote Kilimanjaro so hard, only his head remained above the ground when he lay dead. And there it remains to this day. Shenandoah Walking was the fastest of the brothers, and he fled far across the ocean to the west. Shenandoah ran until the end, and the Lord smote pieces off of him as he ran, leaving them scattered behind in a grisly testimony to the endurance contest. But at last Shenandoah lay dead, but he had not taken the lady either. The most cunning of the brothers was Everest Walking. He waded partly out to sea and hid himself among the cliffs. There he stayed for 40 days and 40 nights, while thunder split the air and rain quenched every flame man tried to light. But search as he would, the Lord in raging skies could not find his bride anywhere on earth. However, while Everest was cunning, he was not learned. He and his brothers had guessed rightly when they guessed that the bag of the sun's treasures would indeed cover the flame of the lady in burning stone without scorching or singeing, but as it sat among the cliffs, it did nothing to prevent the lady from singing them the song of stone. The cliffs took up the song and sang it to the boulders, and the boulders sang it to the cobbles, and the cobbles sang it to one another, until eventually the song reached the ears of Merrill of Linz, a stone singer who had married a potter and adopted an orphan named Arthur. But Arthur was no longer just an orphan. He was already well on the way to fulfilling his destiny and avenging himself on the people who destroyed his home city. In fact, he had retaken the city of Worms, and Merrill's prophetic insights had been one of many things that helped him become a leader of men and lead his army to victory. When Merrill told him a being of great power called for his help from the White Cliffs to the south, and that rescuing this being might do something to end this infernal rain that plagued the city, Arthur took up his spear, donned his armor, and set out, with Merrill there to show him the way. No mortal man is quite certain what happened in the 3 days Arthur was gone. For 2 days, it seemed, nothing changed. But at the end of the 3rd day, the horizon seemed to light up, as if dawn was breaking rather than the sun setting. Wings of fire swept the storm clouds from the sky. An enormous figure cast its shadow over the horizon. That whole night was bright as day. The earth shook and waves crashed as Arthur did battle with Everest Walking. Finally, the titanic creature was thrown down and his body dug a trench between the lands that Arthur claimed and the rest of Europe. The Everest Channel remains there till this day, the first and greatest line of defense for Arthur's people. With the defeat of Everest Walking, the Lady in Burning Stone was freed. The Lord in Raging Skies came and found her, and when the sun rose, it pronounced them wed. In gratitude, the Lord and Lady granted him titles by which he would be remembered forevermore, the Lady dubbing him the Phoenix-born, and the Lord dubbing him the Giant Killer. In addition to this, they showered upon him gifts and blessings and wisdom, and he took them as his patrons, founding the Storm's Watch, the Hearthkeepers, and rechristening his home city as Avalon, all in their honor. However, these achievements did not come without a price. Arthur returned to the city of Avalon alone, and Merrill of Linz was never seen again. Arthur never said what fate his adopted mother met, but it's generally agreed to have been a dark one. It's likely that, even without the blessings of the mated pair, Arthur would have always been a great man. But after he slayed Everest Walking, it was certain that he would be a legend. So it's no surprise that this one battle and the outcomes of it have continued to shape the world until the modern day. And indeed, we see this at every hearthfire and storm watch scattered throughout the Colombian West. So there you have it, the legend of the mated pair and how they impact Roy Harper's life half a world away from Avalon. If you're more interested in the nitty-gritty details of it, well, the development of Have Spell Will Travel is coming along, and I hope to have it out to you in another couple of months. In the meantime, let me know what you think of that story down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.